You are now listening to the Fantasy Whisper podcast with your hosts, Johnny Game Time Hicks and Big Travy.
What's going on, Whisper Nation? Welcome to the Fantasy Whispers podcast. That's Big Travy, and I'm Johnny Game Time Hicks, and we're here to give you that fantasy football fix on this episode number 37. Travis, we are in part 2, as I like to say, of our weekly matchups of week number 8, man. Craziness.
NFL matchups, the sequel.
Yeah, I like
this is the only situation, well, there's a couple situations, where the sequel is better than the original.
Oh,
actually, it's probably just as good. But either way, we're going to be consistently letting you down, and you can count on that. So at least we're consistent. We'll tell you who to start. You won't like it because they won't. I'm just sorry. I'm sorry, Johnny. Like, my confidence is way shot.
Why is your confidence so shot?
I continue to roll out players that are just not doing it, Johnny. I mean,
Travis, what is so nuts about this year is there's just been so much scoring, which we love it as fantasy owners. Don't get me wrong. Like, we love it as fantasy owners. But there's been a ton of scoring this year, which has like inflated all of the entire scoring averages. So it's like normally when you would score in a fantasy league, you and I are in a league of record. We did this because we're the nerds. We calculate it out, and it was 105. If you score 105 in our league, you were going to win most weeks. Now, it's this year, it's like if you score 120, then you have a good shot at winning. If you score anything below that, it's up in the air, which is just crazy, which is like most leagues out there right now because the NFL is on such a crazy rate of touchdowns. But I love it, man. I love it. I love seeing all these TDs. I'm all about the TDs, dude.
It's causing me to lose. It's causing me too. It's causing me to lose sleep, and I'm just sick of it. So without further ado, let's get into part D and roll through these games here so I can get this bad taste out of my mouth. And if we move on to the next week, I can put the last week behind me. That's all.
Go.
That's the deal. If you suffer a loss on that Monday night, then Tuesday you just feel so bad. And by Wednesday, you're like, okay, waivers come in. You're like, oh, I feel better now. Thursday, you're a little bit better. And then football. And then you're right into the next week. You're like ready to put that last week behind you. It's crazy. But let's put the last week behind us. Let's dive into part 2 of these games, Johnny. The first game we're talking about is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Cincinnati Bengals. It's an over-under of 53.5 points with Cincinnati favored by 6 after their complete letdown on Sunday night. I think most weapons on both sides of the ball, Johnny, you're rolling out here. It's a higher over and under of all the games this week, so you definitely want a piece of this.
Yep.
The only one I'd say I'd shy away from here is I don't really want a piece of that Tampa Bay backfield situation. Even though we have Peyton Barber out, most likely. He's dealing with some injuries here, and we got Ronald Jones taking first-team reps.
Mm-hmm.
Jones is on the back end for me of that flex discussion, and that's just because his yards per carry has been really low. It was low in the preseason, and I just don't know if he can catch enough balls to be consistent to keep his floor high. And we know how the Buccaneers move the ball. It's through the air.
Right.
So, I don't know.
Here's the interesting thing. All offseason, we heard the coach coming out and saying, oh, we know why Ronald Jones didn't catch a lot of balls in college, right? And then, but the weird thing was, for the first few weeks he was active, all he was doing was catching balls. He wasn't running out of the backfield, which is like super baffling. So I don't know what this coaching staff is really going to do. I feel like that's kind of how it's been this whole season, kind of questioning what are these coaches thinking. But we digress. I agree with the Ronald Jones. I have a question for you, Travis, as a flex spot here. You have Ronald Jones as a flex. If you had to choose between Ronald Jones or Corey Clement, which side are you falling on there?
I'll give it to Jones, and that's only because Jones could end up being the starter here against the Bengals, who are actually pretty forgiving against the run. You look at Tampa Bay playing Cincinnati, and Cincinnati gives up the 4th most points per game to the running back position with 29.2, whereas you have Philly playing against Jacksonville. Sorry, Jacksonville, who Jacksonville gives up the 25th least or the 25th most points against the running back at only 18.7. So the matchup is better. There's a similar timeshare, maybe even actually better for Jones because he might get more work. Than Clement, and I just want to avoid that situation. So yeah, I would actually give it to Ronald Jones there.
So
in the event that Barber is out,
correct,
Barber would have to be out of the game.
The one person I want to touch on that I would stay away from the Buccaneers side of the ball is Cameron Brate. He's kind of being phased out of this offense, and now I understand. I know what people are going to say. They're going to be like, "But Johnny, game time. What are you talking about? Cameron Brate has scored a touchdown in all but one game this year. Why are you shying away from Cameron Brate?" And I'll tell you why. Because the last 2 games, he's had a total of 2 targets in the 2 games, and in each game, the one target that he was targeted on were both touchdown throws. So it's either he catches one ball for a touchdown, and you're going to get your 6.5 points from Cameron Brate, which you will be happy with from the tight end position. Or guess what? He's not going to catch it, and then you're going to get a big fat zero burger on your tight end spot. So I would stay away from Cameron Brate. Leave that stick of dynamite on the waiver wire for somebody else. Maybe your opponent will pick up Cameron Brate, and then you got a 50-50 shot of him either getting 0 points or 6 points.
Yeah, and I think the interesting point about Brate is you talked about him, in the red zone. Well, Godwin is actually taken over for this team. He has the most targets inside the 10 of the Buccaneers on the entire team. So I like Godwin to be that red zone guy now, especially with Winston there. We know he likes Chris Godwin. I think that's kind of played a part in getting Brate phased out. I think you're right. He's been very unsustainably lucky. Speaking of a guy that's touchdown dependent, we kind of look at CJ Uzomah the same way.
Yeah.
He only saw 2 targets. He's very touchdown dependent, but Tampa Bay allows the NFL's most points per game to the tight end, 19.6. I'm rolling out Uzomah again. He'll be a back-to-back play for me, and I think he scores here, or he's a good bet to score. And even if he doesn't, I feel like he's going to get more usage than the 2 targets he saw last week. Speaking of the Bengals, you're rolling out AJ, you're rolling out Andy Dalton here. I know he had that bad game. He's also going to be a guy that had a bad game, but I'm going to put in my play or stay away article found at thefantasywhisperers.com.
Travis, you know what he reminds me of?
What's that?
Tyler Boyd.
Oh, no,
that song? You had a bad game. You take your one down. You sing a sad song and you turn it around. And I think he's going to turn it around.
I'm literally watching our followers just drop.
Just go ding, 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 ding. They love my singing, okay? Travis, Tyler Boyd, I'm saying start of the week for me. Start of the week this week for me. Tyler Boyd will have a good game against this disgusting
Buccaneers
Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense.
Still a great matchup for a wide receiver. They're still the second best matchup on the schedule if you look at opposing defenses. So, I would go ahead and do that. Moving on to our next game, Johnny.
Yep.
We have the New York Jets at the Chicago Bears. Soldier Field is hosting this game. 46-point over-under. Chicago favored by 7. Listen, Powell injury. We talked about it before. Bilal Powell out for the year with a neck injury. Could be out of the NFL. His career could be over. Feel bad for that guy. But this could mean more work for Isaiah Crowell. However, this is a terrible matchup for me, Johnny. The Bears give up, on average, only 17.8 points per game to the running back. I'm not starting Crow if I can avoid it. He'll be a stay away for me. And then, of course, you know what that means. He'll probably score 2 touchdowns.
Probably.
I'll be completely wrong. But no, and then you just kind of wonder, who can you start on the Jets, if anybody?
I'm
not
feeling
a pass
confident.
catcher there that you like at all? We wanted Curse to be the guy last week. He didn't get he got a big fat 0. If you started him and trusted him, he really made you pay for it. Should be throwing in this game.
I dropped 9 wob on that guy. 9 wob on him, and he got me 0 points. Horrible.
It's like paying for dinner for a date, and nothing comes of it.
Yeah, it's like
you just get friend zoned.
Yeah, it's like you go to a date, right? You're all excited. You text that person. You're like, "Hey, I'm ordering drinks. What would you like?" No, I can't even say it's drinks because then you can actually enjoy the beverage there. Let's say you order the food and then you're like going to a vegan restaurant because that's what the date was like. Oh, I want to go to a vegan restaurant. You go to a vegan restaurant. You ask what they want. You order it, all to be at the last second. Oh, hey, I'm sorry. Something came up. My roommate has to go to the hospital.
Or even worse, you just get ghosted.
Yeah.
That's exactly what he did.
Yeah, that's Jermaine Curse.
We got Jermaine Curse ghosting lineups in October. That's festive.
Yeah.
It's like Halloween.
Going with it.
Happy Halloween. He's boo. He's a ghost. Ghosting.
He pulled I know this isn't the same player, but this is where, just think of it in this way.
Wilson! Well done!
Yeah. But instead of Wilson, it was Curse.
Yeah.
Where are you?
Well, another guy that didn't ghost or Wilson or curse you. He cursed you. He literally cursed you.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're just spitballing here, Whisper Nation. Sorry about that. Chris Herndon was a play for me last week, Johnny, in the Player Stay Away article. And guess what, baby? He came through 7 targets, 4 catches, 42 yards, and a touchdown. This is the pass catcher I want in that Jets offense. I think you can play him again. I think Herndon is a guy that could be emerging here for the Jets.
Is he a guy's guy? Is he a tight ends guy's guy?
Hey, listen, in the world of tight ends, the wacky world of tight ends, you could do a lot worse. You're at least taking a look at him again here. If you're, maybe you were the Gronk owner and you had to do a quick fly that happened on Instagram. People were asking me about how to replace Gronk. This was a guy I actually suggested. Luckily, it paid off, so I wasn't kicked off the Fantasy Whisperers show. But yeah, no, it was pretty good. I want to get to the other side of the ball, Johnny. It's definitely the more interesting side of the ball. The Bears have been good on offense lately. Trubisky has been a top 5 quarterback. Top 5 in the last 3 games, really getting into his groove, gelling with this new offense. And alongside him is Tariq Cohen. Johnny's been a top 10 scorer in his last 3 games. And get this, the Jets allow just under 6 catches to running backs on average per game, especially PPR. I'm loving Cohen. And even in standard, I think he's a guy you have to keep rolling out as this offense finds its groove.
Yep, I completely agree. I think that I think that Tyreek Cohen is starting to be used a lot like Tyreek Hill in this offense, and with Nagy rolling with the way he had the same setup, I think that not only Cohen but Trey Burton is now starting to emerge. Of course, the moment I have to drop him, he starts busting out. He is now the tight end number 2 for this year in touchdowns scored. Travis, you got to play him moving forward, right? Locked and loaded tight end 1 for the remainder of for foreseeable future.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We thought Burton was going to be touchdown dependent, but it didn't matter because every tight end pretty much is, besides the top tier.
Yep.
I think Burton is now sneaking into some usage that could be what we wanted before the year. Mm-hmm. I would say temper expectations. He's a guy that definitely, I don't think we'll see that kind of yardage and usage as he did last week every week, but he's going to be a decent bet to score every week. So I think you got to keep rolling him out there because he's going to be a good play. So going to our next game, Johnny, we have the Washington.
Hold on, before we move on to that, I think we've probably gotten more questions about anybody We forgot to mention. I mean, it's
I just
not a
thought
comment.
we could get out of here. I thought we could get out of here without talking about him.
Jordan Howard. I'm just gonna play this song for Jordan Howard.
Hello, it's me. I was wondering
Jordan Howard.
if after all these years
Can we
you'd
please
like
meet
to me
and just go over just the season?
everything.
I just feel like you probably should play this song for Matt Nagy and Jordan Howard. It's like it's like a song at a dance. It's like, hey, you slip it to the DJ. You're like, hey man, could you play this for me?
I need to win this. I need to win her over. Just give me this one song.
Jordan Howard's trying to play the song so he can win over his coach. But meanwhile, Tariq Cohen, Mr. Steal Your Girl, coming in here and stealing all the snaps and touches. Listen, they are a heavy favorite in this game, a 7-point favorite at home. I think this shapes up for a good start for Jordan Howard. I'm okay with you starting Jordan Howard here.
Jordan Howard or Ronald Jones?
Jordan Howard.
Okay.
Better
so
offense.
It's not
or
to
more
that
efficient
point
offense.
yet. You're not to that point yet.
No, and listen, he scored last week. He could have had 2. There was a penalty. He could have scored the week before the bad game where he fumbled at the goal line.
Yeah.
So there are options. This offense has been highly efficient. We talk about Trubisky being a top 5 scorer. They're getting it from the tight end and Cohen, which means they're continuously getting first downs. I like Howard as a decent play here and there. He has good touchdown upside on an efficient offense.
Okay, so now we can jump on over. Sorry, I wanted to get that in there because we've already been fielding a lot of questions about him. So I thought it was important to get, even though it's
no, it is definitely.
All right, so next up game, I don't know if this is any more appealing on the appetite or on the tongue here, and that's the Washington football team against the New York Giants. This is a 42.5 over-under. Washington is favored by a point. Why only a point? I have no idea. Again, I don't understand this line when it comes to the Redskins.
Listen, Vegas continues to put baffling lines out on the Redskins.
But it works.
And yet it continues to work every time. Like, I just, what do they know?
Just kudos
Alex
to them.
Smith is a bookie or something.
Yeah,
man.
I mean, well, they allow us to do our jobs a lot better. I will say that, Travis, because without that, like, there's no way that I would have put this game that close. Especially with the Giants selling a ton of their players. We all thought that Eli was going to go to the Jags, and guess what? He did go to the Jags. Breaking news, Eli went to the Jags, except for it wasn't the Eli that everyone thought it was going to be. It was Eli Apple, their corner, on the defensive end that was playing a little bit better this year than he was last year. He still was giving up the big plays, but still, Travis, they also traded their...
I thought Eli Apple went to the Saints.
Oh, yeah. Where did I...
The Jags.
Oh, sorry. Not the Jags.
I think you were saying Eli getting traded, right?
Eli getting traded. Correct. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sometimes
no worries. And then also, Snacks Garcia gets traded from the Giants as well to the Lions. And so what this does for me, Johnny, is it says Adrian Peterson's a play, and he's a big play in a big way. Big play in a big way. Don't stay away. It's AP's day all day.
And that's that's what the fantasy whispers say.
Yeah. We just may go by the bay. No, I like Adrian Peterson quite a bit this week.
Yes, I do
think
too.
With the lack of Snacks Garcia there, they are a favorite, as small as it is. So the run game should stay. We got to watch Chris Thompson's usage in practice, I should say.
Yeah, there were rumors that he might be able to suit up for this game. If he does, I'm certainly sticking him in this lineup. I think that a dink and dunk kind of situation will really help in this offense. However, Travis, the big question I have for you is, are you going to start Jordan Reed? He's been so frustrating. The talent is there. The quarterback that you would think would be the perfect quarterback for Jordan Reed is also there behind the center. Yet, we've seen over the last 2 games, he's averaged 6 targets per game. But and I will give a 10 yards per catch average. However, he's not catching anything or putting up the monster totals that you would think that he would put up. Vernon Davis over that same span, however, is only seeing 3 targets, so he's playing a little bit less than he was a few weeks ago. But what's your confidence in Jordan Reed?
This is like a guy you cannot drop because of his talent, but you're like getting so close to doing.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't know. He's the most perplexing, and it's probably because I have him in our league of record that he's the most perplexing to me. I don't know what you can do with him. You can't drop him. He'll get scooped up immediately. Yeah. You can't, you don't really want to roster two tight ends. It's not, especially in this year where they're just garbage.
Tight end. Stick to one.
I would say that he has touchdown upside for a team that has been consistently pretty good. Mm-hmm. And so he is one of the last receiving options in that team. I think that you've got to keep rolling him out there. I mean, what are you going to do? Roll out a guy like Cameron Braid or Uzomah who, because they've scored more recently, you're like, they score. Are you going to roll out Chris Herndon? Like, are you going to roll out guys that have scored recently? Or are you just going to kind of stick with Reed, who is a super talent, who that the Redskins know is a super talent? I think that Alex Smith has statistically always used the tight end. I don't think he's going to stop using him. I think this is one of those things where talent should rise. I don't know that you can do much better. You know what,
Travis? It's okay. Just don't blame Alex Smith. It's not his fault. He can't read.
He literally can't read.
Yeah. All right. No. Looking at the
soon,
Giants,
I'm not going to be able to read either.
Looking at the Giants side of the ball, Travis, is it safe to start anyone other than Saquon Barkley or OBJ in this Giants offense?
Honestly, I'm kind of okay looking at Sterling Shepard. I didn't think that he was going to be useful. I thought that with the emergence of Evan Ingram, and maybe it'll play out that way too. Because I think Evan Ingram is a guy you want to be able to start. Right. But Sterling Shepard has at least 7 targets in his last 5, and Washington has allowed a wide receiver 3 finish or better to both wide receivers in their last 4 games. So what that means is OBJ and Shepard should both see work, because the last wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2, 4 times that Washington has faced, they've given up wide receiver 3 or better numbers. So I think Shepard is actually a decent play here. You're talking about this game being close. I think, them being in it, they could continue to have all parts of their game, which includes the play action, which they haven't ran a ton of. But if they're in a close game, they could be able to run that. And I think that benefits Sterling Shepard. And OBJ, but I'm just saying I think that both wide receivers are a good play here.
Yeah, Evan Ingram coming back from the injury, he 2 of 4 targets. For
my
16.
stupid play of the week.
I mean, it was there. It was
Evan Ingram there. Play of the stupid week.
I think better days are ahead for Evan Ingram. This was a weird game. Eli Manning threw for 399 yards. Travis,
Evan Ingram or Jordan Reed.
Evan Ingram.
I probably agree with that.
Yeah. Eli Manning threw for 399 yards, but only 1 touchdown, and it came in literally the last second of the game against the Falcons, Travis. How do you throw for 399 yards?
They're lucky they even had that last second, because they're running damn QB sneaks at the end of that game like a bunch of idiots. What? Hey, so if you were on our Instagram or Facebook, we showed a what the F happened, and we had one of the Whisper Nations out there. Shout out to my boy K_LBY, I think is his name. I'd have to look that up. But anyways, part of the Whisper Nation shows where they lost by 0.1 point because of those QB sneaks, because they didn't give the ball to Saquon Barkley. My boys lost by 0.1 point.
But he got
vicious,
the 2-point conversion.
Brutal.
Yeah, I lost by less than 2. Because Eli didn't.
It's not about you, Johnny.
Eli didn't. Hey, honestly, how funny. Every time that OBJ comes off the field, the coach is like hugging and condoling him, and he's just like, "It's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay."
Did you see and then online they had Pat Shurmur slow-mo saying, "What? Throw it to Odell."
Yeah,
There's
Odell could have
something-
easily had 3 touchdowns in that game, easily. But
Moving on
Eli is terrible. All right,
to a wide receiver core that probably won't ever have 3 touchdowns by one guy in a game, and that is the Oakland Raiders.
Not as long as John Gruden is the coach.
The Oakland Raiders are hosting the Indianapolis Colts. They probably won't have 3 touchdowns in a game because they won't have any wide receivers left by the time John Gruden's done with this team.
Yeah, not at all.
He's stripping it down to the practice squad, baby.
Next we're going to hear him say, you know what? It's really hard to find a receiver that can't catch.
Yeah. So the Oakland Raiders are hosting the Indianapolis Colts in Oakland, 49.5 point over under, with Indianapolis favored by 3. Andrew Luck. He's currently the QB number 3 on the year, Johnny.
Yeah.
And then you have Oakland giving up average of 265 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. Do you think Luck smashes those average?
I'm going to say yes because I'm playing against Andrew Luck this weekend, and it has not been my year this year. So I'm going to say it's going to go over. This defense was actually a little bit better than I thought when it came to opposing quarterbacks. However, this game script is kind of, the 49.5 over under is kind of shaping up like it's going to be a pretty high-scoring game, Travis. I'm not sure that Oakland's going to be able to stop Andrew Luck. He's been one of the hottest quarterbacks. Now I want to turn the ball over, though, to one of the biggest surprises of this year, and that is Marlon Mack coming out of the backfield. Since he's been back the last 2 games, he has been insane on the yards per carry and the amount of touchdowns that he's getting. But this is a question of where Marlon Mack is coming in with a full head of steam, but I wanna hamper those with the last 2 games for the Oakland Raiders. They have held the lead rusher to under 60 rushing yards and 1 touchdown total. You want to know what those 2 running backs are, Travis? That would that would be Melvin Gordon, who is the number 2 running back. Well, he might have dropped after this week since he didn't play. But Melvin Gordon and Chris Carson, those 2 running backs were both held. Now, Chris Carson,
right? Chris Carson's in a committee, and that became a blowout game. They worked other running backs in, and then the Melvin Gordon game. Melvin Gordon, I think, was pretty prominent or dominant through the air in that game. So I think that's kind of, you look at the reason why they're holding, it's not because they're being a suffocating defense, in my opinion. I think
would you
games
say
are getting out of hand.
So then would Naheem Hines be a much more better play?
No, because Mac's actually getting receiving work.
Okay.
Mac is actually a guy I think that fits the bill as more of a all-around back. Yes, I think Hines is going to have games here and there, but I think Hines is a guy that, the Colts never really wanted as a feature back. Okay. They want to use him here in different spots. Marlon Mack, though, if that guy could stay healthy, this guy has the makings of a feature back on a Colts or on a Andrew Luck-led team.
Well, what's crazy was Jim Irsay over the summer was saying that, Marlon Mack can be a 1,500 yards from scrimmage running back, and we all laughed. Like, we all were like, yeah. I remember sending you a text, like a screenshot of him being like, oh, yeah, you see what he's saying? And we were just like, yeah, there's no way. But in the last 2 games, Travis, he's had 31 carries for 215 yards, a touchdown. He's also had 3 receptions on 5 targets for 37 yards and a touchdown as well. So it will be interesting to see exactly how much he's used in this game, whether they're going to need him or not. Here's my concern, Travis. My concern for this game is that either Andrew Luck will have a big game and Marlon Mack won't, or Marlon Mack will have a big game and Andrew Luck won't. That's what I actually think there's room for both here. We talked about. Hey, don't you say that. Don't you ever say that ever again.
We talked about Oakland being not that great on defense. Maybe they shouldn't have traded away Khalil Mack. Yeah. Shocking.
Hey, it's hard to find.
Oakland gives up the 9th most points to the quarterback at 18.8, and they give up the 12th most to the running back at 25.6. They also give up the 41, or I'm sorry, the eighth most wide receiving points to the two wide receivers. The eighth most points to wide receivers with 41.8. So the bottom line here is that Oakland can be had in all facets of the game.
Yeah, T.Y. Hilton last week went 4 for 4 for 25 yards, but he did catch 2 touchdowns coming off the injury.
Yeah, he was working back from the injury. Tre'Davious White has been good on solo coverage. Yeah. I think Hilton is a guy that you're rolling out now after he's come back. He doesn't have any setbacks. You're going to keep rolling him out there. Listen, T.Y. Hilton with Andrew Luck, that's like fantasy gold. We know that. Mm-hmm. The Raiders running backs, now that Marshawn Lynch is out, we thought we liked Richard, and I still do like Richard season long. In this game, Indy isn't favored by all that much. We have John Gruden coming out this week and saying Doug Martin is ready for a featured role as the featured back. I know we talk about how you can't really trust what Gruden says because he's here or there, but this is actually what I was talking about in the offseason, Johnny, and I took a lot of flack from you on this, mostly because Marshawn is out is why this is happening. Yeah. But I said that Doug Martin was the apple of John Gruden's eye, which if you watched the Tampa Bay game on Monday night, the infamous Tampa Bay game where John Gruden wouldn't shut the hell up about Doug Martin, this is basically what happened. He wouldn't shut up about him. He got a head coaching job, and then he signed him. He is now ready to give Doug Martin the rock. I think he's good for 12 to 15 touches in this game. Whether that equates to anything because he sucks at running the football is a different story.
He'll get 12 to 15 touches. They're just
I think he could fall into the end zone is what I'm saying. I think in this first game and maybe the first 2 games, Doug Martin's the better play unless they're in a game where they're heavily underdogs. Because I think Richard will get passing down work.
Doug Martin versus Richard whisper bet
for this week.
Yeah. Hey.
Yeah, I'll do. Hey. Yeah, I'll do this week.
You're wrong, Lloyd. How much you want to bet?
Yeah, you going?
Yeah.
All right,
let's do it.
You're on.
I'm gonna get you.
I don't know how, but I'm gonna get you.
I don't know how, but I'm gonna get Jalen Richard to be more fantasy relevant than Doug Martin.
Yeah. Not this week. I think by the end of the year, yes. Sure.
All right. So, yeah, Jalen Richard has had at least 6 targets in 4 of the 6 games this season. And that's with Marshawn Lynch. He's not gotten a big amount of carries, but I do see with them not being favored, that's the biggest part for me is game script. And I think that Doug Martin is...
Yeah, but they're only underdogs by 3 points per Vegas, and they're at home. I just don't see them. I mean, obviously, I don't know what Vegas is thinking, but I trust Vegas a lot of times. And I think the Raiders, could keep this one tight. And that's based on the Colts defense not being very good in a lot of facets.
Yeah.
So what about Jordy Nelson and Jared Cook? Amari Cooper's been shipped out. Cook could actually be the bigger benefit here, in my opinion.
We saw it before Jared Cook be a very good pass option. We certainly know that Derek Carr and him have a good rapport. Jordy Nelson is someone that is interesting to me. I think he's more of a wide receiver 3 or wide receiver 4 at this point. I want to see how he does. He's had some good games this year. However, I want to see a little bit more consistency out of those 2 before I put them in my lineup. But I'm more confident in Jared Cook being a play this week and a play weekly moving forward now that Amari Cooper's out. And those are pretty much the only 2. I'm Martavis Bryant. Don't feel confident in that at all. And Seth Roberts is maybe an interesting play now that he's going to be playing out of the slot. They're saying that Jordy's going to be on the outside with Martavis and Seth Roberts in the slot. That's a little bit intriguing, but again, unfortunately, this offense isn't good enough to sustain that many fantasy options for me, so that's where I would cut it off.
Yeah, I would agree.
All right, speaking of cutting off, the 49ers are at the Arizona Cardinals, which, they should just be cut off for the rest of the season. They look terrible. This is a 43.5 over-under. It is actually a pick 'em Travis, it is being reported that Burita is most likely to sit out of this game to try to get healthy. Who are you more confident in firing up against this horrendous Arizona Cardinals defense that is just being gouged every single week by running backs?
Yeah, give me Raheem Mostert if you're talking about a guy you have to start here. The Cardinals have just been destroyed. They're allowing 186.6 yards per game to the opposing backfield. That's the most on a per-game average basis. And they allowed the 49ers backs to total 248 yards on 43 touches back in Week 5.
Yeah. I think
so. For me...
I think what the interesting part about that, Travis, is Alfred Morris during that game had 9 touches for 25 yards, where Mostert had 7 carries for 59 yards and also added 4 targets for 19 yards through the air.
Yeah, and if you look at the 2 games after that, so in the last 2 weeks, Mostert has 23 touches for 165 yards. So the guy's getting it done on his own. We talked about his track speed. With Breda out, I like Mostert here. I mean, you got to start people against Arizona. If you can't start people against Arizona, you can't start people. Like that's a rule of thumb. That's as good as it gets here for me. Some of the guys that are interesting. The only other guy for me, I guess, on San Fran is Kittle.
Yeah.
Beathard is an interesting stream, but like this week, I'm not trusting him. Like we talked about Cam Newton and our non-trust for Cam Newton. I'm not starting CJ Beathard over Cam Newton. You're not going to see that happen.
No.
I'm not starting CJ Beathard over Trubisky. I'm not starting CJ Beathard over Drew Brees in a tough matchup against Minnesota. Like there's just not enough people that you're willing to start him over.
Right.
So Marquise Goodwin, I want to believe, but I just keep feeling like it's boom or bust, and you'll never really know when it's going to hit. Obviously, Patrick Peterson, he'll see a good amount of him in this game.
Who is reported to be staying. We are not trading Patrick Peterson, thankfully. That would have been awful.
Yes, I agree. It would have made them a target on all ends.
Yeah. Speaking of the Cardinals, though, Travis, is there anybody else that you're firing up other than David Johnson? And are you firing up David Johnson? He's not been too good lately. He hasn't really been the running back that you've drafted.
He's still a top 15 running back on the season, though, right?
Yeah.
I think we make this comparison quite a bit on the show, and that's David Johnson is equivalent to Todd Gurley and Todd Gurley's Fisher years, where he is not an RB1, he's an RB2 with upside. I think that's the same with David Johnson. And listen, Byron Leftwich will now be calling plays for the Cardinals. He is taking over from Mike McCoy, and it would be nearly impossible to be worse than Mike McCoy at calling plays. So I like to see what Byron Leftwich could get going on here.
The nice part about Byron Leftwich, Travis, is that he was coach under Bruce Arians. He comes from the Bruce Arians tree. Bruce Arians trusted him to call some of the plays in some of the games a few years ago. And he is a guy that has had a lot of confidence instilled in him. And so he knows how to use David Johnson. He knows how to use Larry Fitzgerald. I will say this before we go into the next matchup and before next week. If Larry Fitzgerald has landed on your waiver wire, I would pick him up because what you're going to start seeing is Larry Fitzgerald and David Johnson split out in the slot opposite sides, which is how they should be used, because now the defense has to adjust. They have to decide, am I going to guard David Johnson or am I going to guard Larry Fitzgerald? Whichever one they choose, the quarterback, it'll be an easy decision. You go to the opposite one. And so I think that there are better days ahead for Larry Fitzgerald. I think we'll be able to finally start seeing David Johnson and Larry Fitzgerald more utilized in the right and proper way. But do I think that they're going to be as relevant as they were last year? I agree with Travis in that, and I don't think that we're going to see that upside.
Yeah, I mean that pretty much sums it up. As Christian Kirk is an interesting play here.
Yeah.
The Niners have been pretty bad against the pass. Listen, this is a 43.5 point over under, and it's a penalty or a pick 'em. I mean, basically. So they're saying that there's going to be about 20 points on each side, 21 points on each side of this game. So there's going to be some touchdowns scored here. I think DJ is a good bet, and I think Kirk is a decent bet.
Mm-hmm.
Also, don't mind Larry Fitzgerald. We had kind of written him off, but I actually don't mind him in this matchup. He kind of seemed to, even in the last game where they were, pretty much handled, he seemed to kind of get it back. He scored. He didn't seem like the injury was bothering him all that much as it had been before. But moving on to probably the most exciting game for me of the week, and that is the Green Bay Packers, my team, my squad here, coming out to my hometown here in Los Angeles to take on the Los Angeles Rams, 56.5 point over under, with the Los Angeles Rams favored by 9.5.
This is insane.
I get why they do this. Like the Rams
would bet
really
the under.
Good, but I
would take that spread. I would take that spread.
I am trying to bet on my Packers here.
Let's go to our bookie. Let's put it down.
So for me, I like the Packers. Listen, Rodgers off the bye. He told reporters he wants to shed the knee brace during the bye. That was his plan.
Yep.
He had been getting a little bit more mobile and more mobile each week.
Time to go mobile.
I hope that he's able to do that. But listen, you're starting Aaron Rodgers. You're starting Devontae Adams. You're probably starting Jimmy Graham based on the position. Where it really gets interesting is Geronimo Allison and Randall Cobb. And for me, Johnny, I think you can actually kind of start Geronimo as a wide receiver 3 with wide receiver 2 upside and Cobb with flex appeal in some situations. And that's simply because if you look at it, Johnny, over the last month, the Rams have allowed 49 of 75 targets. That's 65.3% completion percentage. And in those 4 games, Johnny, ready? 8 touchdowns to the wide receivers. We talked about this secondary coming into the year because of Aqib Talib and Marcus Peters and how they were going to be shut down. Well, Talib's on the IR, and then you have Marcus Peters just getting torched by teams. Right. So for me, the Rams are up there. They are now top 7 in the league against the position over the last 4 weeks. And it's insane to me. So I think that's another reason why I just don't know. I guess I don't know why Vegas has this as such a blowout, but maybe it's just the strength of the strengths versus the strength, and the Rams' strength is that much better. Yeah. On the other side, I don't think there's any Ram you're benching here. I think you talk about Goff. He's been underwhelming in a lot of starts here.
Wait a second, Travis. You're telling me that we need to start Todd Gurley?
You mean God Gurley?
God Gurley, exactly.
Dude, Todd Gurley rolls out of bed with 2 touchdowns.
All right, so Travis, this is a legit, serious question, okay? With Todd Gurley has been hands down. Like, Todd Gurley right now is on pace to meet or exceed the single season touchdown record set by LaDainian Tomlinson for rushing attempts and 31 touchdowns, which is unheard of, right? We haven't seen this in years, in a decade. How concerned are you that the LA Rams are by far and away one of the best teams in the league, that they will have this completely locked up come playoff time, and that in week 16, week 17, if you play in the playoffs in week 17 as well, which you should change. That's not a good rule. But even week 16, how concerned are you that they're not going to play their starters, because Sean McVay didn't do he sat them last year, and they were in a closer matchup race than they are this year. This year they might be hands down, 2 to 3 games ahead of anybody else, the second best in the division. And so they might not even need to start. They play the Arizona Cardinals week 16, Travis. They can probably, and this is sad to say, but they could probably start their second string and beat our first string. So what's your concern as a Todd Gurley owner? Are you are you
Well, listen,
concerned
this is one of the few backfields we told the Whisper Nation a few weeks ago that they need to roster your backup. And so in that case, I think that you need to make sure if you're a Gurley owner, you own Malcolm Brown. And if you don't, you probably got to buy a little bit of it because, as Johnny said, we could see a situation where they're benching the starter. So I would say if you're gearing up, if you're in a comfortable lead, go out and get Malcolm Brown, put him on your roster, stash him because you could be looking at 15 and 16 without Gurley if they are that far ahead. I will say one thing, though. Basically, I will say, see, Charlie agrees with me.
Yeah, he's upset.
Yeah. No, but I will say one thing, and that is the NFC's good, man. And listen, this game, I know Vegas doesn't believe. Packers could easily beat them.
I think so.
I think they could. I think they could beat them. They also have the Chiefs on the schedule. They're not going to go undefeated.
And they have the Saints. And they play the Saints in a couple weeks.
Right, exactly. So we have some games in the NFC. The NFC is loaded with talent. They could get knocked off, could make things a little more tight.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. They had a choice between a 3 and a 4 seed last year, and he still benched his players.
Yeah.
I don't think that'll happen if he has the choice for a bye. He's going to want the bye.
But if they have it locked up, that's my concern. All right.
Yeah, agreed.
Moving forward, anything else you want to touch on this game? Jared,
just want to talk about Jared Goff briefly. Okay. Listen, the Packers allowed a starting quarterback finish to C.J. Beathard before the bye. They're going to be on the road. This defense has not been very good through the air. Yeah. And Jared Goff's got a lot of weapons. I think he's worth a look if you're looking at guys like Breeze or Cam Newton against tough matchups.
Right.
I think that Jared Goff's worth a look.
I agree.
Moving on to Breeze, who is in a tough matchup, and that's the Saints at the Vikings, Sunday Night Football, a rematch of the NFC quarterfinals, if you will, with the Diggs Minnesota Miracle. I'm so pumped for this game just as a football fan. I think it's going to be a really good game. Both of these teams coming off big wins. It's a 52-point over-under. You've got the Vikings favored by only 1 at home.
Yeah, crazy.
Are you good with starting both Ingram and Alvin Kamara here? We only have one good finish against the Vikings all year pretty much, and that's Todd Gurley.
Yeah, he had 89 yards in that game, and then if you look at everybody else, the highest rushing total, Travis, was 60 yards.
Right.
So there is a lot of concern here as to who am I going to start. Now, this game is supposed to be a little bit closer, and in closer games, I would tend to side with the Alvin Kamara. We saw that last week. Alvin Kamara was the Saints were in a tight matchup against the Baltimore Ravens, and they started to lean on Alvin Kamara a little bit more. So I am a little bit concerned with Mark Ingram's touches here. I think he'll still end up with 10 to 12 touches, but this is a good rushing defense, and I think that he's going to need a little bit more than that, more touches than that. You're depending on a touchdown in order to really boost you up and give you, an RB2 type of gameplay here. And to be honest with you, the way that they've been using Hill in the red zone, which they're lining him everywhere. They're lining him as a tight end, as a running back, as a fullback, as a wide receiver, as a quarterback. As a fan, I love how they're using him, but it's as an owner of Mark Ingram, it's very frustrating because it's like, give Mark Ingram the ball. So I'm not super confident that Mark Ingram can get in the end zone in this game. So I'm actually thinking that I would bench Mark Ingram, play Alvin Kamara. But Travis, the big question is here, Xavier Rhodes is banged up. We saw him be carried off the field last week, and he's supposed to sit out this game. So for me, Michael Thomas is a guy that I went from, you're going to start Michael Thomas each and every single week because you drafted him high to be that number one guy. But you were expecting a lower outcome for Michael Thomas. But now I think that Michael Thomas could have a monster day.
Yeah, I mean, especially it's a higher over under. It's, a close game projected. Michael Thomas is, a guy you got to start. You're not going to bench Michael Thomas. I think you're okay. you're definitely okay with Xavier Rhodes out. But I want to talk about Traquan Smith. Over the last 2 games, he's 6 for 8, 155 yards and 2 touchdowns. So for me, Traquan Smith is kind of interesting in this game too. I actually think that this game suits up to be the weapons versus the weapons. You're going to see, the wide receiving core versus the wide receiving core, or the pass catchers, so to speak. You're not going to see a lot of the run game, I feel like, in this game.
Yeah.
So you touched on it there, and I think that means Traquan Smith is worth, that wide receiver 3 flex appeal. As far as the Vikings side of the ball, are you starting Latavius Murray? He's had 39 carries for 224 yards and 3 touchdowns. He's been running back 4 over the last 2 weeks. Without Cook, he's finally getting into that groove. They're finally giving him the usage he needs to be very effective. But the Saints have actually been pretty good against running backs.
Yeah, I feel confident in starting him in this game because of what he's shown the last 2 weeks, right? They're giving him the touches. It looks like Cook is going to be out. Yes, if you look at the game tape, Latavius Murray has ripped off a few big runs, which has given him such, you said 224 rushing yards. A lot, he's on 3 of those. He's gained 30 to 40 yards apiece. So there is some concern, but Latavius Murray, I don't mind as a flex play here, or with a lot of teams on buys, you might need him to play.
I think I'm going to fade Latavius Murray. I think he's a guy I'm benching, and that's just because I look at these Saints, Johnny. They rank first in the league as far as opponent yard per carry. They only allowed 2.8, and they're only allowing 47.7 rushing yards allowed per game. Yeah. So, that's like to the top running back in the last 2 weeks. I don't know. I'm not okay with Latavius Murray in this game. I think, like I said, I think it's going to be wide receivers kind of battling it out in this game. The quarterbacks are going to try and make the most of it. It may even end up a little more defensive than we initially thought, even with the over-under. So I'm excited for the game. Obviously, the rest of the Vikings, Diggs, 14 targets, even though those 33 yards in back-to-back games. He's got 14 targets in the last game. Are you starting him against the Saints? They did.
Oh, yeah. I'm starting Diggs for sure. I think this is kind of a get-right game for him.
Yeah,
like
I would
agree. You're getting a lot of targets. It's only a matter of time before he either breaks out of one or that.
You got to think that he's going to feel good going back home and seeing the Saints on the other side of the field after what they did to him last year in that NFC Championship.
And guess what? He's going to want to
NFC quarterfinal.
He's gonna be like, that wasn't a fluke what I did to you guys.
Yeah, no joke.
All right, so last game of the episode, Travis, the Monday night game, the dun-dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun-dun. All right, we got the New England Patriots at the Buffalo Bills. It's a 44.5 over-under. New England is favored by 14 points. And I actually think that they could get the over on this one. Who are you willing to start, though, Travis, in this game, right? You've got Gronk, who is a risky play because it's a Monday night game. It's not sure whether he's going to go or not. They're saying it's a possibility, but it is, a back injury that has held him out of last week's game. So if he can't go, you're looking at having to start Charles Clay. Not the best. Are you willing to fire up Gronk? Are you willing to put that risk out there?
If you're a Gronk owner, you're like, you have backup plans, right? So, yeah, I'm sitting on it for a while. I don't know. Even when he's been on the field, he hasn't been effective, right? So, yeah, no, I can't. Listen, if you did the work to pick up a decent backup last week to him, you got to look at that backup again. I don't think he suits up. If I'm betting, I don't think he suits up for this game.
Yeah. And then you're looking at the other pass catchers, Julian Edelman and Josh Gordon, Chris Hogan. Do you like any of those guys? Probably if Gronk sits out.
Josh Josh Gordon and Julian Edelman, I think, are must starts for the time being. They continue to be full-time players for their offense. They continue to trade off target share leads each week. I think that I like Josh Gordon's upside. I think Julian Edelman's the safer play. Chris Hogan is the interesting guy here because he had seven targets last week with Gronk out.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know that he is the best option. He's basically the fifth option in this offense when you think about all the other weapons that they have.
Mm-hmm.
I think the interesting play, though, a desperation play, is Kenyon Barner. Okay. He got 10 carries last week with Michelle out. Michelle is likely out in this game. I think he's a good bet to score in a game. They're favored by 14 points, Johnny.
Yeah.
If he doesn't score a touchdown in this game, I mean, that would be kind of wild, you would think, or at least get a good amount of yardage.
Right.
On the other side of the ball, nobody on the Bills I really want to fire up as underdogs, except for, and I can't believe I'm saying this,
Right.
I sneakily like Kelvin Benjamin.
Really?
Yes, and I'll tell you why.
Please do.
Kelvin Benjamin with Derek Anderson has the following games under his belt. If you think about the
back in the day, which was
back in the day, and even this last, yeah, he was wide receiver 36 last week with 71 yards on only 4 catches. But now you look at the games he's had with, and here's his yardage totals with Derek Anderson over his career. One game with 71 yards, one game with 70 yards, one game with 104 yards, one game with 92 yards and a touchdown. And then if you look at Benjamin's games against the Patriots last year, he had 5 catches for 70 yards and 4 catches for 104 yards against New England. So there are some statistical there's some data here to suggest that Kelvin Benjamin could be a decent play on Monday night. And if you're in a pinch and we got these bye weeks rolling out and you need a start, I wouldn't go. I don't feel great about it.
Yeah.
But I think Kelvin Benjamin's a decent play.
He's the guy that when you stick in, you're like cringing, but
yeah,
if it pans out, you look like a genius. Like everyone's like, "Whoa, he started Calvin Benjamin against me," and like that's just like the lowest of the low. Like
yeah,
the if you win, you're just fully disgracing the other owner because you're like, I just beat you with Calvin Benjamin.
Yeah,
not bad.
Exactly.
I don't mind it. The stats are nice. The stats back it up. We like stats here at the Fantasy Whispers. So, all right. That's it for today's show. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Like always, please subscribe. Hit that bell notification on YouTube if you like watching us and watching our goofballness on YouTube.
Goofballness.
Yeah. I just made that up, okay?
Yeah. You just coined that.
Yep. So please hit that subscribe button, hit the bell so you can get notified anytime that we come out with new videos, as well as check us out over on Instagram and Facebook. We put out a lot of content on there. There's a lot of graphics, a lot of charts, a lot of exciting information that comes from those graphics that we're putting up daily. So make sure you follow us over there, as well as check us out on Google Play, iTunes, and Apple iTunes, and Stitcher. If you like our podcast, hit the subscribe button on there as well, so that way you get instant downloads right when we release episodes. Travis, got anything else?
Yeah, if you guys are listening to this, that means you're prepping for your week. And what better way to prep for your week than watching the Fantasy Whispers on Instagram when we go live Sunday before the games at 9 a.m. 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's an hour before kickoff. We'll be going live to answer any questions there on your lineup questions. And remember that Saturday and Sunday, we're running story questions on the Instagram story. You type in there. It's really nice. You type your questions in there. We answer those via our Instagram story, flash pictures up of the players, and give you some succinct details and analysis. Woo-wee. About which player to start. And then, of course, go ahead to thefantasywhispers.com. We got player stay away articles, we got rankings, and we got waivers. Everything you need, guys. We're trying to help you win. Once again, I'm Big Travy, and that's Johnny Game Time Hicks. We're out.
Peace.
Peace.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Whisperers podcast. You can hear more from John and Travis on Google Play, SoundCloud, and iTunes. You can also follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at TF Whisperers.